From New York, it's That Kevin Show.
See, I knew it.
Come on, Kev. What's a few classified documents between friends?
I told you all the time. I knew it. I knew he had some too.
Here he is, That Kevin McCullough.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is someone who, like myself, has a keen interest in some of the events and the people and the personalities that were in effect in World War II. And in fact, he's written a follow-up book to his bestseller, originally called The Rifle 2, Back to the Battlefield. It's published by Regnery, which is a sister company to Salem Communications, which is the home of a lot of the radio stations and one of the television networks that this show is seen and heard on. But why is he doing what he's doing in revisiting some of these battlefields and places, and particularly with the particular piece of equipment that he is? This is something that we'll get into as we ask you to welcome Andrew Biggio. Hello, Andrew.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Thanks for being here. For people that didn't know about your first book, you've kind of told these stories in a certain particular way. How did you arrive at the concept of the rifle?
Well, I'm not the first Andrew Biggio. I'm named after my uncle that was killed in World War II, and it was my grandfather's brother, actually. And when I survived Iraq and Afghanistan, I started to read the letters that this Andrew Biggio wrote home before he was killed in action. And the first letter he wrote home to his mother was, "Dear Mom, today we fired the M1 Grand Rifle. This is a new rifle of the time. It's so accurate. I feel so confident with this weapon." And he's writing home to his mom about this stuff, and I thought, wow, if he felt that powerful for this weapon 75 years ago at the time when I was reading the letters, I need to go out and buy one. I wanted to hold what he held. I wanted to feel what he felt. I was dealing with, I guess, some sort of survivor's guilt, being a veteran myself, sharing his name. I purchased this M1 Grand Rifle, and I sat in my house with it, and then I said, now what? So I showed my family the rifle at like a dinner. And they were like, well, it's just a gun. Why do you have a gun at dinner? I'm like, well, no, this is the piece of equipment. This is the thing Uncle Andy had when he gave his life. And this is what he wrote home to, great grandmother or two. And they didn't really get it, which is fine. And I understand that not all of them were veterans, but I was searching obviously for something more. And it wasn't until I thought about my neighbor who fought in the Battle of Okinawa that I thought would appreciate this a little bit more. So I knocked on his door, and at this time he was now 92. This is going back about 7 years ago. And I put that rifle into his hands, and he went from being 92 to 19 years old again, raising that weapon without a problem, putting it in his shoulder, waving it around. And we talked about the Battle of Okinawa for like 3 to 4 hours at least. And I said, Joe, I always want to remember this moment where you sign your name on the rifle. And he signed it. Joe Drago, 6th Marine Division, 22nd Marine Regiment, Battle of Okinawa. When I left his house and I looked down at that signature, I knew I wanted to collect as many signatures and as many stories as possible and represent the whole war on this rifle.
So that was the genesis of this, and this is volume 2 of some of the stories and some of the signatures that you've acquired. Why are telling these stories so important to you?
Because the World War II, pretty soon these guys are not going to be, and girls are not going to be able to tell their stories for themselves. I mean, we're talking in 4 years. In 4 years, it is going to be nearly impossible to find a World War II veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, they're going to be 103. And so, the World War I generation slipped right by us. Next thing you knew, we all woke up one day and they were all gone. And we've done a lot better, like via the media, books, television, movies, miniseries, things like that, with telling World War II a little bit more, because I think it was like one of the first recorded wars with, the advancement in technology and television and movies and film and stuff like that. But what those guys went through, I think, represent all veterans when we say sacrifice and what they went through. When people watch Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, they know what veterans go through, and I think it's a huge thing for awareness of patriotism.
Well, I can't disagree with you on that. And on the cover of the rifle too, and if we have a picture, we'll put this on the screen. You can see the rifle and all the signatures that have been added to it in those kind of really cool markers that actually show up on dark backgrounds, so you can see the stories that you feature in this particular version cover both theaters, Europe and Asia. And for some, my listeners know that we're encouraging them to come with me next year for the 80th observance of D-Day, and to kind of go back through some of these areas where some of these lives were lost and some of these heroes were made, and to see for themselves kind of the terrain and what they were up against. But the theaters were very different, and the conditions were very different. The one thing that both theaters had in common was that it was just excruciating war. I mean, the Battle of the Bulge and every single island battle that took place in the Pacific were just excruciating misery just from the conditions themselves. You've been back to a couple of these places with some of the World War II survivors. What impressed you in those visits?
What the most thing that impressed me is the locals who still live in these villages in rural Belgium, where the Battle of the Bulge was, in Normandy, France, even in Germany, who come out to meet these liberators 80 years after their actions. I mean, the hugs, the kisses. In Bastogne, there's a parade every year called the Nuts Festival, representing when General McAuliffe said nuts, and they actually take peanuts and walnuts and they throw them from the city hall balcony, to celebrate their, independence, their liberation. And, I was marching one year in the parade, and I was pushing a World War II veteran in a wheelchair, and people were holding up their grandkids in the crowd over people's shoulders so they could see a living World War II veteran. I mean, we don't even remotely do anything like that in this country. I mean, we definitely have patriotism. We have Veterans Day, Memorial Day, but they're treated like we treat professional athletes.
Well, they brought something more dear to them than we have lost here. Now we can talk politics and talk about the freedoms that we're losing currently, but we've not experienced what those who were hostily taken over by a foreign power and subjugated to that power. We've not experienced that here. And by God's grace and hopefully the strength of the American military, we won't. But it's something that we have to be vigilant for. I'm very, very convinced. We're speaking with Andrew Biggio of The Rifle and The Rifle 2. The Rifle 2 is his new book. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Don't go away.
Ready or not, he'll be right back. That Kevin.